Before anyone on Flight 417 noticed the woman by the window, they noticed her son. Adrian Vale was the kind of billionaire strangers recognized without being introduced. His face had been on magazine covers, airport screens, charity banners, and the front page of every business paper in New York. People knew the sharp suit, the quiet eyes, the calm walk of a man who could buy almost anything he wanted. But that morning, walking beside his mother through the private terminal, Adrian looked like a boy guarding something fragile. His hand stayed near her elbow, ready to catch her if grief won. Victoria Vale had not smiled in 6 months. Not once, not even politely. The staff at the Vale estate had stopped trying to cheer her with fresh flowers, warm bread, soft music, or careful jokes whispered in the kitchen. Her only daughter, Amelia, had died on a rainy night when a drunk driver crossed the wrong lane and crushed a car full of dreams. Since then, Victoria moved like a woman whose soul had stayed inside that wreck. She ate because Adrian begged. She slept because the doctor insisted. She breathed because her body remembered, though her heart seemed to refuse. Adrian had built hotels in 12 countries, bought broken airlines, and made them profitable, rescued companies before the world knew they were sinking. Yet he could not rescue his mother from the silence inside her. Every morning, he found her sitting in Amelia's old music room, holding a pale blue hair ribbon against her chest. Every evening, he heard the same unfinished piano song, playing softly from an old recording, then stopping before the final note, because Victoria always turned it off and wept. Money had opened every locked door in Adrian's life, but grief had no handle, no key, no price. The trip to Seattle had not been his idea at first. His doctor, his aunt, and even the old gardener had told him the house was hurting Victoria more than helping her. Every wall had a memory. Every hallway had Amelia's laugh hiding in it. So Adrian arranged a short flight, a quiet hotel, and a private meeting with a foundation that supported young musicians, something Amelia had loved. When he asked his mother to come, she stared at him for so long he thought she had not heard. Then she touched the ribbon and whispered, "If you stay close, I will try." So now they were boarding early, away from the crowd, while the morning sky pressed pale gold against the aircraft windows. Adrian had booked the whole first-class cabin, not because he wanted luxury, but because he wanted space around his mother's pain. Victoria wore a grey coat even though the weather was warm. Her hair, once perfect, was pinned loosely, with silver strands falling at her cheeks. She carried no purse, only Amelia's blue ribbon folded inside her palm. When the flight attendant greeted them, Victoria did not answer. Adrian smiled for both of them and guided her gently into the window seat. The young air hostess was named Maya Reed. She was not rich, not famous, and not the kind of woman first-class passengers usually remembered after landing. Her uniform was neat, her shoes polished, her dark hair tied in a simple bun. But her eyes were different. They did not slide past people the way tired eyes often do. They rested, listened, noticed. In one glance, she saw the billionaire's expensive watch, his careful smile, the mother's empty stare, and the small blue ribbon trapped between trembling fingers. Maya had served angry men, nervous brides, lonely soldiers, and sick children. She recognized hidden pain. "Good morning, Mr. Vale," she said, her voice low enough not to disturb the quiet around them. "Welcome aboard." She looked at Victoria, not with pity, but with respect. "Good morning, ma'am. My name is Maya. I will be nearby throughout the flight." Victoria kept looking through the window, as if the runway were another country she could not enter. Adrian started to apologize, but Maya gave him the smallest nod, telling him not to explain. Some sadness did not need a public announcement. Some sadness only needed everyone to lower their voice and stop asking it to perform. When Maya returned with water, she did something Adrian did not expect. She did not place the glass directly in front of Victoria like a task to complete. She set it softly on a folded napkin beside her hand and stepped back. On the napkin, in careful handwriting, were 9 words. You do not have to speak to be cared for. Victoria's fingers stopped moving over the ribbon. Her eyes lowered. For one moment, the cabin noise seemed to fade around her. Adrian watched his mother's face, with the focus of a man watching a locked door tremble for the first time. Victoria read the message twice. Her lips did not smile, but they softened, and that tiny change struck Adrian harder than applause ever had. For months, people had tried to drag her toward comfort. Maya had simply placed comfort beside her and allowed her to choose it. Adrian looked at the flight attendant as she checked another seat belt 3 rows away. There was nothing dramatic about her movement, nothing staged, nothing begging to be praised. Yet something about her calm kindness reached into the cold space between mother and son and lit a match no one else had managed to light. As the plane rolled away from the gate, Victoria closed her eyes and held the ribbon tighter. Adrian knew takeoff would hurt her. Amelia had loved flying. She used to press her forehead against windows and name clouds like they were pets. That memory used to make Victoria laugh. Now it made her shoulders shake. The engines grew louder. Adrian reached for his mother's hand, but before he could speak, Maya passed by and lowered the cabin lights just slightly on their side. It was a small adjustment, almost invisible, but it made the corner feel private, softer, safer, like a quiet chapel. The plane lifted through a layer of clouds, and sunlight broke across the cabin. Other attendants would have disappeared after takeoff, but Maya kept her attention gentle and steady. She did not hover. She did not stare. She moved like someone who understood that grieving people hate being watched, but fear being abandoned. When the seat belt sign turned off, she came back with chamomile tea and a small bowl of honey sticks. "I thought something warm might help," she said. Victoria opened her eyes. For the first time, she looked directly at Maya. Her voice was faint. "My daughter liked honey." Maya did not smile too quickly. She accepted the sentence like a gift handed over with shaking hands. "Then she must have had good taste," she said softly. Victoria looked down at the ribbon. Amelia put honey in everything. Tea, toast, even oatmeal. Adrian froze. His mother had not spoken Amelia's name in weeks. Not to him, not to the doctor, not even in prayer. Maya stayed still, giving the memory room to breathe. "What was she like?" "If you do not mind me asking." Victoria swallowed. Adrian feared the question had gone too far, but his mother answered, "Bright. Too bright." Maya crouched slightly in the aisle, not fully sitting, not standing over her either. "Bright people leave light in strange places," she said. "Sometimes in songs, sometimes in smells, sometimes in small blue ribbons." Victoria's eyes widened. She looked at her closed fist. "This was hers," she whispered. "From her last recital, she played Moon River and forgot the middle part." Everyone laughed, but she kept going. She made up her own music until she found the song again. A tear slid down Victoria's face, but her voice did not break. She was always finding her way back, always, until that night. Adrian turned toward the window because he could not let the whole cabin see his eyes fill. He had paid therapists more than most people earned in a year, and none of them had brought his mother this far. Maya had done it with tea, a napkin, and the courage to listen. When another passenger pressed the call button, Maya stood smoothly. "Thank you for telling me about her," she said. "I will carry that carefully." Victoria nodded once, almost formally, as if entrusting Maya with something precious. After Maya walked away, Victoria stared at the tea, then lifted it and drank. During the next hour, the flight became strangely peaceful. Outside, clouds stretched like white fields. Inside, the cabin settled into low voices, turning pages, distant typing, and the soft clink of cups. Adrian tried to read a report, but understood nothing. His attention kept returning to his mother, who was looking at the handwritten napkin again. Once, She touched the words with her finger, then touched the blue ribbon. He wanted to say he loved her. He wanted to ask whether she felt better. He wanted to beg her not to disappear again. Instead, he stayed quiet, learning from Maya's silence. Maya, meanwhile, carried another secret. Years earlier, before she became an air hostess, she had trained as a pianist. Her father had worked 2 jobs to buy her lessons, and her mother had sewn costumes for school concerts. Then illness emptied their savings, and Maya left music school to work. She never complained. She told herself the sky was another kind of stage and passengers were another kind of audience. But some songs stayed inside her fingers. When Victoria mentioned Amelia's recital, when she spoke of Moon River, and a girl making up her way back, Maya felt an old achy answer. She went to the galley and opened the small crew storage drawer, where she kept a folded card from her little sister. Inside the card was a thin silver charm shaped like a music note. Maya rubbed it once, thinking. Then she leaned toward the lead attendant and spoke quietly. "There is a grieving mother in 1A, she said. Her daughter played piano. Would it be possible, during cruise, to make a short announcement and play a soft instrumental piece through the cabin system?" The lead attendant hesitated. "We do not usually do personal requests." Maya nodded. "I know. This one matters." The lead attendant looked past Maya into the cabin. She saw Victoria holding the ribbon, Adrian watching her with helpless love, and the quiet dignity around their grief. After a moment, she picked up the phone and asked the captain. There was a pause long enough for Maya to lose hope. Then the captain answered, "Keep it brief. Nothing sad. Something gentle." Maya exhaled. "Thank you." She searched the approved music list and found an instrumental version of Moon River. Her hand hovered over the screen. It was a risk. Music could heal, but it could also open wounds too deep. Before starting it, Maya returned to their row. "Mrs. Vale," she said softly, "I wanted to ask you something." Victoria looked up. "We sometimes play light music during the middle of the flight. Would it bother you if the cabin heard a gentle piano version of Moon River?" Adrian's breath caught. He almost said no for her, afraid the song would destroy the little progress they had seen. But Victoria did not look destroyed. She looked startled, then frightened, strangely hungry, as if someone had mentioned water to a woman lost in a desert. "Amelia loved that song," she whispered. Maya lowered her voice even more. "We do not have to play it. Nothing has to happen unless you want it." Victoria turned to Adrian. For the first time that day, she seemed to see not only his worry, but his exhaustion, his love, his silent months of carrying her and himself. Her fingers opened around the ribbon. "I think," she said slowly, "I want to hear it once without running away." Adrian's hand found hers. "Then we will hear it together," he said. Maya nodded and stepped back, but her own eyes were wet as she walked toward the galley. A moment later, the captain's voice came through the speakers, calm and warm. "Ladies and gentlemen, as we continue above the clouds this morning, we invite you to enjoy a short piano piece for a peaceful journey." No one knew the announcement was really for one broken mother in seat 1A. The first notes began softly, almost shyly, like light entering a room after curtains had been closed too long. Victoria went still. Adrian stopped breathing. The melody moved through the cabin, simple and tender, and found the place where Amelia's memory had been waiting, not dead, only hidden. Victoria pressed the blue ribbon to her mouth. Her eyes closed, and the tears came at once, but they were different from the tears Adrian knew. These did not pull her under. They rose and fell with the music, carrying something out instead of pushing something down. She saw Amelia at 13, thin legs swinging beneath the piano bench, laughing when she missed a note. She saw Amelia at 19, arguing that sad songs were not sad if someone loved them enough. She saw the final recital, the blue ribbon in her hair, the room holding its breath, her daughter finding her way back. When the chorus came, Victoria's shoulders shook, and Adrian leaned closer, ready to hold her through another collapse. She surprised him. She laughed. It was tiny, broken, soaked in tears, but it was laughter. She opened her eyes and whispered. She really did make up the middle part terribly. Adrian stared at her. For half a year, the world had been grey. For half a year, his mother's face had been a closed door. Now, through tears, under airplane light, she was remembering something funny. Maya stood at the galley entrance, one hand over her heart, watching from a distance. The song reached its final notes and faded into the hum of the engines. No one clapped. No one spoke. Even the strangers, who did not know the story, seemed to understand that something holy had passed through the cabin and should not be disturbed. Victoria kept her eyes closed for a few more seconds. Then she opened them, turned toward Adrian, and smiled. It was small, uneven, trembling, but it was real. Adrian stared in awe, unable to move. The smile he had begged the universe to return was there, fragile as a candle, bright as morning. His mother was coming back. Adrian did not trust his own eyes at first. He had imagined that smile so many times that hope had become dangerous to him. In the first months after Amelia died, he would enter rooms expecting to find his mother laughing at some old memory, only to meet the same hollow silence. Now the smile was really there, trembling at the corner of Victoria's mouth, shy and painful and beautiful. He wanted to hold it in his hands. He wanted to protect it from every rough thing in the world. Instead, he bowed his head and let his tears fall quietly. Maya brought a tissue and placed it on Victoria's tray without a word. This time, Victoria reached for her wrist before she could step away. It was not a strong grip, but it held more life than anything Adrian had felt from his mother in months. "Thank you," Victoria whispered. "I thought hearing that song would kill me." Maya knelt beside the seat, careful to remain balanced as the plane moved through a thin pocket of air. "Sometimes the memory is not trying to kill us," she said. "Sometimes it is knocking, because it still wants to be loved today." Victoria looked at her as though those simple words had opened another window. For 6 months, she had treated every memory of Amelia like fire. She had locked away photographs, closed the piano, avoided the garden path where Amelia used to sing to roses. She believed remembering meant losing her daughter again. The song had not taken Amelia farther away. It had brought her close without cruelty. Victoria touched the blue ribbon and breathed in slowly. Adrian watched the change spread through her face. Not happiness yet, permission. Permission to feel love without drowning under the weight of absence. Across the aisle, an older man with silver glasses removed his headphones. He had spent most of the flight pretending not to listen. The quiet miracle in seat 1A had touched him too. "My wife loved that song," he murmured, more to himself than anyone else. A young mother behind him wiped her eyes, while bouncing a sleeping baby against her shoulder. The cabin had become gentler, not because everyone knew Victoria's story, but because grief, when honored properly, makes strangers remember their own soft places. Maya stood, smoothed her skirt, and carried that tenderness carefully down the aisle. Adrian wanted to speak to her, to ask how she had known exactly what to do, but every sentence felt too small. "Thank you" sounded like a coin tossed at a cathedral. So he stayed beside his mother, holding her hand while the plane continued over the bright, endless clouds. Victoria leaned her head against the seat and closed her eyes again, but this time she was not escaping. Her breathing had changed. It no longer came like someone surviving 1 minute at a time. It came like someone resting after a long storm, tired, wounded, finally safe enough. When lunch service began, Victoria surprised Adrian by asking for soup. It was a small thing, almost ordinary. Yet Adrian nearly laughed with relief. She had refused full meals for weeks. Maya brought the soup herself, along with warm bread and honey butter, because she remembered Amelia liked honey. She did not mention the reason. She simply set the tray down and said, "I thought this might taste gentle." Victoria looked at the honey butter, then at Adrian, and the faintest humor touched her eyes. "Your sister would have stolen all of that before I even lifted the knife." Adrian smiled, and for a moment he was no longer the owner of towers, companies, and headlines. He was only a son hearing his mother talk about his sister without breaking. "Amelia did steal food," he said softly, "especially from my plate." Victoria gave a small sound, half laugh, half sob. She said it was older brother Tax. Both fell quiet after that, but the quiet had changed. It was no longer a wall between them. It was a table where memory had pulled up a chair. Maya saw it from the galley and turned away before they noticed. She had learned long ago that not every good thing needed witnesses. When she was 16, her father died in a hospital room that smelled of bleach and raincoats. After the funeral, people came with casseroles and speeches, but only one nurse understood her mother. That nurse did not say he was in a better place. She sat at the kitchen table, folded napkins into birds, and let Maya's mother cry until words returned. Years later, Maya became the kind of woman who noticed trembling hands, untouched meals. The terrible loneliness of people everyone else was too uncomfortable to approach. That was why first class never impressed her the way it impressed other attendants. Expensive watches could not hide fear. Tailored coats could not soften regret. Diamonds did not stop a widow from shaking during turbulence. Maya had seen powerful men whisper prayers under their breath and beautiful women stare at empty seats beside them. The sky made everyone equal because every passenger had to trust invisible hands to bring them home. Adrian Vale was famous. Yes, in that moment, his fame was thinner than paper. What mattered was the way he watched his mother, desperate and tender, completely human. Near the back galley, another crew member whispered, "You may have just saved that woman." Maya shook her head, "Not save her. Her son has been saving her every day. I only gave the sadness somewhere softer to land." Still, the words stayed with her. She glanced toward the front cabin and saw Adrian helping Victoria spread butter on bread, like she had forgotten the shape of ordinary life. Maya felt an ache behind her ribs, the familiar ache of wanting something good to last. Then the call bell chimed, and duty pulled her gently forward again. The flight began its descent an hour later. The captain announced cloudy skies in Seattle and a smooth landing expected. Victoria opened the window shade wider. Beneath the clouds, city slowly appeared, gray water, silver buildings, bridges like drawn lines across the earth. Amelia had wanted to visit Seattle after graduation because she loved rain and music shops. Victoria had refused to think of that plan after the funeral. Now she watched the city rise beneath them and whispered she would have liked this view. Adrian swallowed. "Yes," he said. She would have named that cloud something ridiculous first. Victoria turned toward him, and there it was again, another small smile, more certain than the first. "Marmalade," she said. She once named a thundercloud marmalade. Adrian laughed, quietly but truly. The sound startled him. He had not laughed without guilt since the accident. For months, joy had felt like betrayal. Maya, passing with a trash bag, paused just long enough to hear it. She did not look at them, but her own mouth curved. Healing rarely arrived like thunder. More often, it entered like this, disguised as one remembered joke, one shared smile, one bite of bread. As the wheels touched the runway, Victoria gripped the armrest, then released it on her own. The passengers began their usual landing rituals, checking phones, stretching necks, gathering wrappers, returning to the small impatience of ordinary life. Adrian felt as if he had landed in a different world from the one he had left. 6 months ago, rain had taken Amelia. Today, above rain clouds, a stranger had handed his mother back a thread of herself. He looked down at his hands and realized they had stopped shaking. For the first time in months, He was not afraid of the next hour. When the plane reached the gate, people stood too quickly, crowding the aisle with bags and coats. Adrian remained seated with Victoria, protecting her from the rush. Maya came to them after most passengers had moved forward. "I hope the rest of your day is kind," she said. Victoria stood slowly. She looked smaller in her grey coat, but no longer vanished inside it. From her pocket, she took the blue ribbon and held it out. Adrian almost protested, but something in his mother's face stopped him. "I cannot give you this," Victoria said, "but I want you to touch it." Maya's eyes widened. She understood the honor immediately. She touched the ribbon with 2 careful fingers, as if it were sacred cloth. Victoria closed her hand around it again. "Now you have met Amelia," she said. Maya's throat tightened. "I am grateful." Adrian watched, overwhelmed by the quiet dignity between them. He had seen business deals signed for billions with less meaning than that touch. Then Victoria did something even more unexpected. She stepped forward and embraced Maya. It was brief, gentle, and trembling, but it was an embrace. Around them, impatient passengers slowed, sensing they were near something important. When Victoria let go, Maya reached into her apron pocket. "I have something for you," she said. "It is not much." She unfolded a small paper star made from a pale blue napkin. "I learned to fold these during hard nights," she explained. "My mother said stars are for people who cannot see the sun yet." Victoria received it with both hands. The color was almost the same as Amelia's ribbon. Adrian stared at the tiny folded star and felt a strange pressure in his chest. Maya had not planned a grand gesture, yet she kept finding the exact door. "For Amelia?" Victoria asked. "For Amelia," Maya answered, "and for you. Keep it only as long as it helps. Let it go whenever it feels heavy." Victoria nodded, pressing the star against her palm. Adrian wanted to give Maya something in return. Every wealthy instinct failed him. Money would insult the moment. A business card would shrink it. A promise would sound theatrical. So he simply said, "You saw my mother when the world only saw my name." Maya looked at him then, truly looked. "Maybe because names are loud," she said. "Pain is quiet. I listen for quiet." Those words followed Adrian through the jet bridge and into the terminal. He walked slowly beside Victoria, expecting exhaustion to pull her back into silence. Instead, she paused near the large airport windows and watched rain touch the glass in silver lines. Seattle welcomed them with the weather Amelia would have loved. Victoria opened her palm and studied the paper star. "I want to visit that foundation meeting with you," she said. Adrian turned, certain he had misheard. "You do?" She nodded. "If they help young musicians, I want to hear about it." "Amelia would scold me if I stayed hidden." Adrian almost answered. Emotion rose too sharply. He placed a hand on the window frame and looked out at the wet runway. Planes moved through mist, blinking like patient fireflies. Behind him, Victoria stood straighter than she had in half a year. A few yards away, Maya appeared at the end of the jet bridge with her crew, laughing softly at something another attendant said. She looked ordinary again, just a working woman pulling a small suitcase, heading toward another gate. But to Adrian, she looked like the person who had changed the weather inside his family. Victoria noticed his gaze and followed it. There was no teasing in her expression, only a mother's quiet understanding. "You should thank her properly," she said. "I did," Adrian replied. "No," Victoria said, slipping the blue star into her coat pocket. "You thanked her like a man who owns things. Thank her like a man who was helped." Adrian looked at his mother, surprised by the strength in her voice. 6 months of silence had not taken away her wisdom. It had only buried it. He nodded, then crossed the terminal before fear or pride could persuade him to stop. Maya had almost reached the crew corridor when he called her name. She turned, suitcase handle in one hand. Up close. Away from the careful order of the aircraft, she looked younger and more tired than he had realized. A loose strand of hair had escaped her bun. Her eyes held kindness, but also caution. People like Adrian often came with storms attached. "Mr. Vale," she said, "is your mother all right?" Adrian gave a breath that was almost a laugh. "Because of you, yes." Then he shook his head. "No, not because of you only. Because you helped us remember how." Maya's face softened, but she stayed guarded. "I am glad, truly." Adrian knew the corridor door would open soon and take her away. He had built empires by speaking at the right moment, yet this felt harder than any boardroom battle. "I would like to know how to thank you without making it feel like a transaction," he said. Maya studied him. "Then do not thank me with anything expensive. Tell me what your mother does tomorrow. Tell me if she eats breakfast. Tell me if she listens to a song and survives it." That would be enough. Adrian had expected many answers, but not that one. He had imagined Maya asking for a charity donation, a favor for her airline, perhaps nothing at all. Instead, she asked for proof that the kindness had not ended at the arrival gate. It humbled him. He slipped his phone from his coat and offered it without performance. "Then let me send you that proof," he said. Maya hesitated, typed her number. No fancy dinner, she warned gently. No headlines, no billionaire surprise. Just the truth. Adrian nodded. The truth. She disappeared through the crew door, leaving him changed. Victoria was waiting near the window when Adrian returned. She did not ask what Maya had said. She looked at him once, then placed the paper star in his palm for a moment, as if lending him courage. They left the airport under low clouds and rode through Seattle in a quiet, black car. Rain tapped the roof in soft, uneven beats. The city smelled of wet stone and coffee. For months, travel had meant escaping memories. Today, every passing street seemed to offer an invitation. Victoria watched people crossing sidewalks and whispered, "Life kept moving too, didn't it?" Adrian answered carefully, afraid too much agreement would sound like betrayal. "It did," he said. "Maybe we are allowed to move with it a little." Victoria kept looking out. Her reflection floated in the glass beside streams of rain. "I hated the world for continuing," she admitted. People ordered lunch. Dogs barked. Mail arrived. I wanted everything to stop because Amelia had stopped. Adrian closed his eyes. "I know." She turned toward him. "No, darling. You do not. You kept moving for me. I made you carry both of us." He shook his head, but she touched his sleeve. At the hotel, Adrian expected Victoria to retreat into her room, but she asked to sit in the lobby for tea. The lobby had a fireplace burning low, shelves of old books, and tall windows facing the grey harbor. She chose a chair near the glass and watched ferries slide across the water like patient ghosts. Adrian texted Maya before fear could edit him. She drank tea. She remembered Amelia without falling apart. She said life kept moving. "Thank you for asking for truth." He stared at the message, uncertain if it was too much, then pressed send and waited. Maya read the message while sitting in a crew room that smelled of reheated coffee and wet wool. Around her, other attendants complained about schedules, uniforms, and passengers who treated politeness like weakness. She lowered her phone to her lap and smiled, not because a famous billionaire had written to her, because a grieving mother had drunk tea. That was the victory. Not money, not romance, not admiration. A woman had faced a memory and survived it. Maya typed back, "Then today was brave. Tell her a stranger in uniform is proud of her." She turned off her screen. That evening, Adrian delivered Maya's words to Victoria, while room service cleared untouched plates and one empty soup bowl. Victoria held the paper star near the lamp, studying its folds. "Proud," she repeated, as if the word belonged to someone else. "I have not been brave. I have been angry, useless, cruel sometimes." Adrian sat beside her. "Grief is not cruelty. It can become cruelty," she said, eyes filling. "I let you live in a house without warmth. I made our staff whisper. I closed Amelia's piano like it was guilty. Then open it when we get home," Adrian said. Victoria looked at him. The suggestion would have shattered her yesterday. Tonight it frightened her, but it also planted a strange little hope. Maybe, she said. Not tomorrow. Not yet. But maybe. Adrian accepted the maybe like a gift. He knew healing could not be rushed simply, because one song had entered the room. Grief was a country with many borders. Still, a border had opened. Later, after Victoria went to bed, Adrian stood by the harbor window and read Maya's message again. Then today was brave. He realized nobody had called him brave for surviving either until that night. The next morning, Victoria asked to walk before breakfast. Adrian almost refused because the rain was steady. But she was already tying her scarf with the careful stubbornness he remembered from childhood. They walked beneath umbrellas along the waterfront. Gulls cried above them. Vendors rolled open coffee carts. A violinist played beneath an awning. The notes thin and sweet against the rain. Victoria stopped. Adrian tensed, ready for pain, but she only listened. Amelia would have tipped him far too much, she said. She believed musicians should eat like kings. Adrian laughed. She believed everyone should eat like kings, honestly. At breakfast, she ordered toast, eggs, and tea with honey. Adrian sent a photograph of the honey jar to Maya, then paused before adding words. Breakfast happened. Honey included. She walked in the rain and remembered Amelia with a laugh. Maya replied 20 minutes later, between flights. That sounds like sunlight wearing a raincoat. Adrian read it twice, then once more. He had spent years surrounded by polished people who spoke in strategy, flattery, and guarded desire. Maya's words had no calculation in them. They landed clean. He found himself wanting to answer honestly, not impressively, and that unsettled him. The foundation meeting took place in an old theater, converted into offices for young artists. Adrian had planned to attend alone, while Victoria rested. Yet she walked beside him through the lobby, her hand tucked lightly around his arm. Photographs of scholarship students lined the walls, smiling over violins, cellos, trumpets. Victoria stopped before a picture of a girl with dark curls seated at a grand piano. She could be Amelia's age, she murmured. Director, a kind man named Simon Bell, greeted them carefully, aware of their loss. Victoria surprised him by asking about the children first. Simon explained that many students came from families who could not afford lessons, instruments, or travel to competitions. He spoke of talent hidden behind rent bills, medicine costs, and parents working nights. Victoria listened without drifting away. Simon mentioned a scholarship fund in Amelia's name. Adrian expected his mother to flinch. Instead, she placed the paper star on the table between them. Amelia used to say music should not belong only to rich living rooms, she said. If her name is used, I want it used for children who would play even if nobody clapped. Simon's eyes shone softly. Adrian had entered that room intending to sign a check. He left understanding money could either hide pain behind marble or turn pain into doors. Victoria asked to meet one student before they returned home. Simon brought in a shy 17-year-old named Lena, who had won a regional piano prize using a borrowed keyboard missing 2 keys. Lena shook Victoria's hand with trembling respect. I heard about your daughter, she said. I am sorry. Victoria's chin quivered, but she did not retreat. Thank you. She loved brave girls at pianos. Lena smiled. I get scared before performing. Amelia did too. The answer came so naturally that Victoria seemed startled by herself. Adrian saw her realize she had shared Amelia without permission from sorrow. Lena asked what Amelia played, and Victoria told her about Moon River, the missed middle, the invented notes, and the laugh that followed. The girl listened with the serious attention of someone receiving an inheritance. Before leaving, Lena promised to learn the song for the spring concert. Victoria pressed one hand to her heart. Only if you make one mistake, she said. Amelia would hate perfection without personality. Lena laughed, and Victoria laughed, not loudly, but freely. On the flight home 2 days later, Maya was not aboard, yet her presence traveled with them. Victoria carried the paper star in a small box from the hotel gift shop. Adrian carried new messages in his phone. During takeoff, his mother did not close her eyes. She looked out and said, "I think grief is like flying through clouds. You believe the gray will last forever because you cannot see above it. Then there is light, and you feel foolish for forgetting the sun existed." Adrian smiled. "Maya would like that." Victoria glanced at him. "You like her, Adrian?" Adrian looked away, though there was nowhere to hide in the open brightness above the clouds. "I admire her," he said. Victoria made a soft sound that felt dangerously close to amusement. Men always use careful words when their hearts are less careful. He shook his head. "Mother," she held up a hand, "I am not arranging your life from a window seat. I am only alive enough again to notice it." That sentence silenced him. Alive enough again. He stored it away like a jewel. After a while, he said, "She asked me not to impress her," smiled. "Then try honesty," Victoria said. "It is cheaper than diamonds and harder to find." Adrian laughed under his breath. The next afternoon, back in New York, he did exactly that. He stood in the music room, where the piano still sat closed beneath a white cloth, and recorded a voice message because written words felt too polished. "Maya," he said. "My mother walked, ate, laughed, attended the foundation meeting, and spoke about reopening Amelia's piano. Do not know how to describe what you started. I will not make it grand. I will only say it mattered." He sent it. Maya listened to the message between flights in Denver, standing near a vending machine, while snow pressed against the terminal windows. His voice did not sound like a rich man giving thanks. It sounded tired, relieved, and careful with hope. She listened once, then again, then saved the message before she could pretend it meant nothing. Her life had trained her to be cautious around men who had too much power, often mistook attention for affection and gratitude for ownership. But Adrian's honesty did not push. It waited at a respectful distance. She replied, "I am glad it mattered." Days passed, then a week. Victoria did not become suddenly healed, and the house did not transform overnight into laughter and music. Some mornings still found her crying over Amelia's old sweaters. Some evenings she stood outside the music room and walked away before touching the handle. But now she came to breakfast. Now she opened curtains. Now she asked the gardener whether the white roses could be moved closer to the fountain, because Amelia had liked hearing water. The staff noticed and began breathing normally again. Even the house seemed to loosen, as if grief had unclenched its fist. Adrian kept sending Maya small truths. Not every day, never enough to pressure her, but enough to keep the thread alive. She ate lemon cake. She cried afterward, but asked for another slice. She told the gardener roses need courage. She stood beside the piano for 3 minutes. Maya answered when she could, sometimes with one sentence, sometimes with a question that made him think all night. What memory feels safest today? What would Amelia want you to stop apologizing for? When did your mother last sleep through dawn? Her questions were gentle. They reached places money had missed. One Friday evening, Victoria asked Adrian to remove the white cloth from the piano. Quest came while sunset filled the room with amber light. Adrian moved slowly, afraid of making the moment too heavy. Dust lifted as the cloth came away. The black surface reflected Victoria's face, older, thinner, but present. She approached with the blue ribbon in one hand and Maya's paper star in the other. "I am not ready to play," she said. "I know," Adrian answered. Victoria laid keepsakes on the piano lid, "but I am ready to stop punishing the music." Adrian closed his eyes. Adrian stood beside the uncovered piano, feeling as if the room had inhaled for the first time in months. Victoria did not touch the keys. She only rested her palm on the polished lid, where Amelia's ribbon and Maya's paper star waited together. The housekeeper, Mrs. Bell, paused in the doorway with a tray and nearly cried. Victoria noticed and gave her a gentle look. "Do not be afraid of tears," she said. "They are not always drowning. Sometimes they are washing the windows." Adrian remembered Maya's words and understood how kindness had become a language inside them all today. 2 days later, Adrian received an invitation to the annual Luminary Gala, glittering charity event where wealthy families donated money for art scholarships and photographed themselves doing it. Usually he attended alone, smiled for 10 minutes, signed a check, and escaped before dessert. This year the foundation director asked Victoria to speak about Amelia's scholarship. Adrian expected his mother to refuse. She read the letter at breakfast, folded it carefully, and said, "If I can say her name in public without collapsing, perhaps someone else will stop hiding from their own grief." He had no answer except yes. That evening, Victoria asked whether Maya could come as their guest. Adrian nearly dropped his cup. "Mother," he said, "she is working, and she may not want cameras around her." Victoria lifted one eyebrow, a sign of the old woman returning. "Ask her without making it sound like a royal command. Tell her I would like to thank her among people who think large checks are the only way to save a soul. Tell her I need one honest face in that room." Adrian smiled despite himself, because Victoria was no longer only surviving, she was choosing again now. Adrian called Maya after her late flight landed in Boston. The airport speakers echoed behind her, and he heard wheels rolling over tile. He explained the gala plainly, no pressure, no promises, only his mother's request. Maya went quiet. "A charity gala in your world sounds like a room where my shoes will be judged before my heart is noticed," she said. Adrian did not deny it. "Some people may be foolish," he answered. "My mother will not be. Neither will I." Maya breathed softly. "Then I will come for her." "Good," Adrian said. "Me too." On the afternoon of the gala, Maya stood before her small closet and stared at the only formal dress she owned. It was navy simple and mended carefully under one arm. Her roommate, Nina, leaned against the door and said, "Rich people love pretending simple things are brave." Maya laughed, but her stomach tightened. She did not fear work. She feared being turned into a story people praised from a distance while never letting her sit beside them. Still, she pinned her music note charm at her throat and whispered, "For Victoria," then left before courage could change its mind. The Luminary Gala filled the grand hall of the Meridian Hotel with crystal light, white flowers, black gowns, and the soft thunder of rich people greeting one another. Cameras flashed near the entrance. Donors laughed as waiters carried silver trays between them. On the stage stood a piano beneath a spotlight, waiting for the scholarship students who would play after dinner. Adrian arrived with Victoria on his arm. She wore deep blue, the first color she had chosen since Amelia's funeral. Around her wrist, hidden from most eyes, was the folded ribbon tied like a secret blessing for tonight alone. Whispers moved when they entered. Everyone knew the tragedy, and everyone tried to look sympathetic without appearing curious. Adrian hated that kind of politeness. Grief felt like an exhibit behind glass. Victoria felt it too, but she kept walking. Her hand tightened once on his sleeve, then relaxed when she saw Maya near the doorway, standing modestly apart from the bright crowd. Maya had arrived early and looked ready to disappear if anyone stared too long. Victoria released Adrian's arm and walked straight to her. She said, "You came." Maya smiled. "I promised truth, remember always." The embrace between them was brief, but cameras caught it, and that was when trouble began. Across the room, Celeste Marlowe watched with narrowed eyes. Celeste was the daughter of an old banking family, elegant enough to be mistaken for kindness by people who had never needed any. She had expected Adrian to marry within her circle for years. Not because he loved her, because their families looked perfect together in magazines. Seeing an air hostess welcomed by Victoria, like blood, unsettled her pride. She turned to her friend and murmured, How touching. The help has become sentimental da core. Maya heard enough to understand the shape of the insult, though she pretended not to. Years of service work had taught her that cruel people often spoke softly because they wanted their victim to feel alone with the wound. Adrian also heard, and anger rose through him fast and clean. He started toward Celeste, but Maya touched his arm lightly. "Do not turn your mother's night into a battlefield," she whispered. Her voice held no fear, only discipline. Adrian looked at her hand on his sleeve, then at Celeste's glittering smile. "For Victoria," he said. Maya nodded. For Victoria first. Dinner began beneath chandeliers that made every glass shine like captured stars. Maya sat between Victoria and Simon, the foundation director, while Adrian sat across from her. Several guests asked polite questions about flying, each one shaped like surprise that she could answer intelligently. Maya remained calm. She spoke about passengers who carried fear, children who counted clouds, elders who traveled to funerals, and soldiers who slept only after hearing someone say they were safe. Simon listened with open admiration. Victoria watched Celeste across the table realize that Maya was not simple. She was only unpolished by their rules yet. Celeste lifted her wine glass and smiled across the table. "Miss Reed," she said, "it must be fascinating to serve people from so many backgrounds. Tell us, do attendants receive special training in emotional performances, or is yours a private talent?" The table went still. The insult wore lace, but everyone saw the blade. Adrian set down his fork. Victoria's face hardened with a strength grief had not killed. Maya folded her hands in her lap. "We receive safety training," she said. "Kindness is not a performance. It is a choice made before anyone decides we are worth looking at kindly." A few guests lowered their eyes. Celeste's smile thinned. Adrian felt pride strike him harder than anger. Maya had answered without cruelty, which somehow exposed cruelty more clearly. Victoria reached under the table and squeezed Maya's hand. "My daughter once told me the same thing in different words," she said, loud enough for everyone nearby to hear. "She said music is not a performance if your heart is telling the truth." Tonight, Miss Reed has shown more truth than many rooms full of applause. The silence changed shape. This time Celeste was the one left alone inside it now completely. Before dessert, the young musicians took the stage. Lena, pianist from Seattle, had flown in for the evening after Adrian quietly arranged it with Simon. Victoria did not know until the girl walked into the spotlight and bowed. Her breath caught. Adrian leaned close. "She wanted to play for Amelia's scholarship," he whispered. Victoria stared at the piano, at the blue ribbon around her wrist, Maya beside her. Fear rose old and sharp. Then Maya said softly, "You are not being asked to be unbroken, only present." Victoria nodded through tears as Lena began Moon River very gently. The melody spread across the hall, not from speakers this time, from living hands. Lena played with courage, and one beautiful mistake in the middle, a small stumble that made Victoria cover her mouth and laugh through tears. Adrian looked at Maya, remembering the airplane, per star, the first smile returning like dawn. Around them, wealthy guests who had arrived ready to be seen were now forced to feel something real. The music did what speeches could not. It made money quiet. It made grief honest. It made Amelia seem near without stealing breath from anyone present there. When the song ended, Victoria stood before anyone asked her to. The hall rose in applause, but she lifted one hand, and the sound faded. "I lost my daughter 6 months ago," she said, her voice shaking but clear. "For a long time, I believed silence was the only way to love her. I closed doors, covered music, and punished every happy sound because she could not make it. Then a stranger on a plane reminded me that memory is not a thief. Sometimes it is a lamp waiting for someone brave enough to light it again for us all." She looked at Maya, not hiding the direction of her gratitude. That stranger was not famous. She did not own a company, a mansion, or a seat at any powerful table. She owned attention. She owned patience. She listened without pity, and because of that, I heard my daughter again, without breaking. Tonight, this scholarship is not only Amelia's name on a program. It is a promise that no child will lose music, because money stood at the door like a guard. Let our wealth become a key, not a wall. The applause that followed was not polished. It trembled. Adrian watched Celeste clap with stiff fingers, her face carefully arranged. For years, he had tolerated people like her, because they belonged to the landscape of his success. Their cruelty came wrapped in education, family names, and invitations printed on thick paper. Tonight he saw the poverty inside that world. Maya, who had arrived worrying about her mended dress, had more grace than all their inherited manners combined. When Celeste approached later with an apology shaped like perfume, Adrian intercepted her before she reached Maya. "Not tonight," he said. "Not near my mother. Not near her kindness." Celeste froze there. Maya stepped onto the balcony after the speeches needing air. The city glowed below, windows shining like scattered notes across the dark. She gripped the rail and let herself shake where no guest could see. Adrian found her, but stayed near the doorway. "May I come closer?" She nodded. He stood beside her with enough space for respect. "I am sorry," he said. "For Celeste, for the table, replace that made you prove humanity before receiving it." Maya stared at the skyline. "I am used to it," she said. "That is what makes me angry," Adrian answered. She looked at him then, surprised by the honesty in his voice. "Do you know what frightened me most tonight?" she asked. "Not the insult. I have heard worse. It was how quickly people waited to see whether you would defend me, before deciding whether I deserved respect." Adrian absorbed that like a blow. "I cannot change every room at once," he said. "No," Maya replied. "You can choose what kind of room you build around your mother, your money, and yourself." He looked through the glass at Victoria smiling with Lena. "I think you already started building it." Inside the hall, Victoria was laughing with the young musicians, her blue ribbon bright against her wrist. The sight pulled Adrian and Maya back from the balcony. Before they returned, Maya stopped him. "Do not put me on a pedestal because I helped your mother," she said. "Pedestals are lonely and easy to fall from." Adrian nodded. "Then stand beside us," he said. "Not above, not below." Beside, Maya did not answer quickly. She looked at his open hand, then the room, then Victoria. At last she placed her hand in his. "Beside," she repeated, and together they walked in. The ride home from the gala was quieter than Adrian expected, but not heavy. Victoria sat beside him with Lena's program folded in her lap, her thumb resting over Amelia's name as if blessing it. Rain traced the window, and city lights smeared into gold rivers. Maya had taken a taxi to her apartment after refusing Adrian's driver with a smile that allowed no argument. She wanted ordinary air after the chandeliers, ordinary streets after whispers, and Adrian respected that even though he wished he could walk beside her until every cruel word lost its power in the night completely. Victoria broke the silence first. "That young woman was hurt tonight," she said. Adrian looked down at his hands. "I know. I should have stopped Celeste before she spoke." Victoria shook her head. Maya stopped her better than anger would have. Still, rooms like that exhaust good people. They make kindness stand trial while arrogance sits comfortably. Adrian turned toward his mother, surprised by the sharpness in her voice. 6 months ago, Victoria would not have noticed a waiter leave a room crying. Now grief had stripped away her old tolerance for polite cruelty and left something cleaner behind inside. At the estate, the music room was still lit. Mrs. Bell had left one lamp glowing near the piano, and the paper star cast a small blue shadow on the black wood. Victoria went straight to it, touching the lid with her fingertips. "I want Lena to play here one day," she said. "Not for donors, for Amelia." Adrian nodded. "Then we will invite her." Victoria looked at him carefully. And Maya, not as a symbol, not as a savior, as herself. Adrian smiled faintly. She warned me about pedestals. Wise girl, Victoria said. Lonely things, pedestals, always too high. That night Adrian could not sleep. He stood in his study long after midnight, jacket off, bow tie loose, watching the city beyond the dark gardens. His phone held no new message from Maya. He told himself not to expect one, yet every few minutes his eyes returned to the screen. He was used to pursuit, used to people answering quickly, because his name carried weight. Maya answered only when she truly had something to say. It unsettled him, then steadied him. For the first time in years, he was not negotiating attention. He was learning to wait well silently. Maya reached home near 1 in the morning. Her apartment was small, warm, and cluttered with plants Nina kept alive by stubbornness alone. She removed her heels, stood barefoot on the kitchen tile, and finally let the evening leave her body. Nina appeared in a robe, hair wild. "Well?" she asked. Maya laughed once, then cried before she could stop herself. Nina hugged her without questions. After a while, Maya said, "They applauded the grieving mother, but some of them looked at me like I had stolen a chair." Nina sighed. Rich rooms hate mirrors when servants hold them up. Maya slept badly and woke to 3 missed calls from her mother. She called back while making coffee. Her mother had seen a photograph online, Victoria embracing Maya beneath the hotel lights. The caption called her the mystery attendant who healed a billionaire family. Maya closed her eyes. "I am not a mystery," she said. "Rent. I burn toast. I forget laundry." Her mother chuckled, then grew serious. "People will make stories because stories are easier than truth. Keep your feet on the floor, my love." Maya looked at her uniform hanging by the door. "I am trying." By noon, the photograph had spread. Some comments praised her as an angel. Others mocked her for trapping a rich man with tears. Maya read 3 before closing the app. Praise and insult felt strangely similar when both erased her real face. At work that afternoon, passengers recognized her. One woman asked for a healing napkin, as if ordering soda. A man joked that he would cry too, if it earned him a billionaire. Maya smiled professionally, but each joke rubbed against the bruise Celeste had left. Kindness, once turned into entertainment, become another way of taking from someone. Adrian saw the articles during a board meeting and felt heat rise behind his collar. One headline called Maya the Sky Angel who melted the Ice Queen. Another hinted at romance with ugly amusement. He ended the meeting early, ignored 3 advisors and called his publicist. "Take them down," he said. The publicist sighed. "We can request privacy. Attention feeds itself. Then release a statement from me." "No," Victoria said from the doorway. He turned. His mother had entered silently, holding the morning paper. "Do not speak over Maya. Ask what protection means to her before building a cage." That sentence stopped him more effectively than any lawyer could have. He called Maya, but she did not answer until evening. When she finally did, airport noise filled the background. "I saw the headlines," he said. "I am sorry." She sounded tired. "You did not write them." "No, but my world invited them." There was a pause. "Your world also funds music for children, Adrian. I am not angry at money. I am angry when money makes people careless." He leaned against his desk. "Tell me what you need." She answered quietly. "I need my name to belong to me." Adrian listened. He did something unusual. He did not solve. He did not command. He asked, "Would you like me to disappear from the story publicly?" Maya gave a little laugh. "You cannot disappear. You are too visible. You can stop allowing them to describe me as if my only purpose was to heal you. I am a daughter, a worker, a woman who once played piano, a person with ordinary bad days." Adrian closed his eyes. "Then we will say that, only if you approve every word." Maya was silent long enough for trust to consider entering. The next morning, a short statement appeared from the Veil Foundation, written with Maya's consent. It thanked the public for compassion, asked for privacy, and redirected attention toward the Amelia Vale Music Fund and the young students it served. It named Maya Reed not as an angel, not as a miracle worker, but as a skilled aviation professional whose dignity deserved respect. The tone was firm, without drama. Victoria read it at breakfast and nodded. Good. Adrian looked relieved. She chose those words. Most of them, he said. Victoria smiled. Then you are learning. He looked down. I hope so. Later that week, Maya visited the estate for tea. She arrived in plain clothes, carrying a grocery store bouquet because expensive flowers made her nervous. Mrs. opened the door and greeted her like an honored niece. Victoria waited in the music room, not the formal parlor. Piano stood uncovered, ribbon and star on its lid. Maya stepped inside and stopped. This room has been loved and feared, she said. Victoria touched the piano bench. Yes, I am ready to love it more than I fear it. Maya placed the flowers in a vase. Sounds like a beginning today. Victoria asked Maya to sit beside her on the bench. For a while neither woman played. Adrian watched from the doorway, unwilling to intrude. Victoria placed one finger on middle C, pressed softly, and let the note fade. The sound hung in the room, thin and brave. She flinched, then stayed. Maya did not praise her. She only placed her hand near Victoria's.
Another whenever you want,
she said. Victoria pressed 2 notes this time. They did not make a song, but they made the silence different. Adrian understood that sometimes one note was an entire victory too. After tea, Victoria left them alone under the excuse of checking the roses, though everyone knew the roses needed nothing. Adrian stood by the window while Maya looked at framed photographs on the shelf. Amelia at 5, missing front teeth. Amelia at 12, wearing mud on both knees. Amelia at 20, laughing beside Adrian at a beach. She looked alive in every picture, Maya said. Adrian came, closer she was. I was always busy, but she forced me into ordinary happiness. She would show up at my office with sandwiches and say tyrants needed lunch. Maya smiled. She sounds impossible. She was, Adrian said, and the grief in his voice was softer now, woven with affection instead of regret alone. I keep thinking I should have answered more calls, stayed at more dinners, listened longer when she complained about nothing important. Maya turned from the photographs. Love leaves unfinished errands. That does not mean it was unpaid. He looked at her, struck. She lowered her eyes. I learned that after my father died. For years I believed I owed him a perfect life, because he gave up so. My mother told me love is not debt. It is inheritance. Those words stayed between them. Not romantic, not yet, but intimate in the way truth can make 2 people stand closer without moving. Adrian wanted to ask about her father, about the piano she had left behind, about the life hidden beneath the uniform. He also wanted not to take too much. Maya seemed to sense the struggle. He drove a city bus, she said. He smelled like diesel and peppermint gum. On Sundays he made pancakes shaped like countries, terrible geography, excellent pancakes. Adrian laughed. What country was the best? She said. It looked like a shoe anyway. When evening settled, Victoria returned with rose petals on her sleeve and invited Maya to stay for dinner. Maya almost refused, then saw Victoria's hopeful restraint and accepted. The meal was simple soup, bread, roasted chicken, and lemon cake. No servants hovered after serving. Victoria insisted everyone sit comfortably, even Mrs. Bell, who protested until Victoria said grief had wasted enough chairs. They ate with awkward warmth that gradually became real. Adrian told a story about Amelia replacing his office ringtone with a duck sound. Victoria laughed so hard she covered her face. Maya laughed because the room allowed it. After dinner, Victoria brought out a wooden box filled with Amelia's sheet music. 6 months earlier, Adrian would have hidden it immediately. Now they opened it together. Some pages had notes in Amelia's messy handwriting. Too dramatic here. Faster, but not like panic. Remember to breathe, idiot. Victoria read that last line aloud and pressed the page to her lips. Maya looked away to give privacy, but Victoria shook her head. Stay, I want her to be known, not locked inside me. Adrian sat beside them, and the three turned pages while the house listened with its lights glowing softly. Near midnight, Maya prepared to leave. Adrian walked her to the front steps. The garden smelled of wet earth and roses, and the fountain whispered in the dark. Thank you for today, he said. She smiled faintly. Today was not mine. It was your mother's, he nodded. She is stronger when you are near. Maya's smile faded. Adrian, be careful with that. I cannot become the condition of her healing. He understood the warning immediately. She must stand even when you are not here. Maya softened, and so must you. The words landed gently, but deeply inside. Before she stepped into the car, Adrian asked one question. Would you ever play again? Not for a crowd, just for yourself. Maya looked toward the music room window, where light still held the piano. I do not know, she said. Some doors are easier to open for other people. He answered carefully. Then maybe someday someone can sit nearby while you open yours. Maya studied him, and the silence did not feel guarded. It felt possible. Maybe, she said. Then she left, and Adrian stood under the porch light, understanding that healing was becoming larger than his family now.